Hi, hi there. My name is Mackenzie Darling, and thank you so much for joining us live from Let It Ripple Film Studios in San Francisco. We are so excited to have you today, and very excited to be talking about our global movement called Character Day, while also having a very special guest, Jillian Darwish, who is the president of Meyerson Academy. We are going to be going through some of our best tips and tricks on how to be implementing your Character Day event this year. And then Jillian's going to be joining us right afterwards to be talking about character education as a whole, how to really engage young learners, and how to change school culture for the best. So to get started, we are very excited to announce that Character Day will be starting on September 22nd this year. It's a 24-hour event where people from all over the globe are going to be joining and watching films around social and emotional learning and character development. We decided the Character Day was born 3 years ago when we decided to do an event or an experiment when we created this film called The Science of Character. The Science of Character is an 8-minute film that really is about the neuroscience behind growth mindset and character development. And we wanted to do this experiment where people from all over the world would be tapping in and watching this film while also using discussion materials that helped answer the question of who am I and who do I want to be in the world. And so Character Day was born. In 2014, we had the goal of 250 groups around the world participating, and to our chagrin, 1,500 people signed up. It was amazing. So we very quickly realized that people were hungry for this type of conversation. In 2015, our internal goal was to have 3,000 groups participate. We added 2 more films, The Adaptable Mind and The Making of a Mensch, which I'll get into in a little bit. And we also, again, offered The Science of Character. So again, the internal goal was 3,000 groups, and we almost came close to 7,000. And that was really with not a lot of outreach, a lot of marketing. It was a lot of word of mouth and just spreading this idea of this global movement. This year, I've been brought on as the Character Day producer, and we now have over 26,000 groups participating, and we're just now in August. So we're really looking for this to be, double, triple in size. We're very, very excited and so lucky and thankful to have you, and your community involved in this event. So what is Character Day? It's a day to really focus on ourselves and the 21st century that we live in. It's really a day for us to stop and ask ourselves, who am I and who do I want to be in the world? So why is this so important? So really, character used to be the backbone of education. And once there was the separation of church and state, there really wasn't any character education within the classroom anymore. And as you're seeing the way of our world in today's society, we're really starting to step back and say, this is what we need, this is where we have to come back to our morals and really focus on what we're bringing to the table for ourselves and for our children. So a lot of you have been creating these social and emotional learning programs within your districts and organizations, and even in individual families focusing more on this. I've been in educational technology sales for the last 10 years, and I had never even heard of districts having wellness programs or social and emotional learning. So it's really amazing to just see the dedication towards this and people really refocusing. So I'm going to start off with our periodic table of character strengths. This will be found in the discussion kits that you can order, which I'll get to in the next slide. But I just wanted to show you a couple things on here. So you'll see that there's 6 values: wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. And then all of these different character strengths that can be found underneath them. I actually have this on my refrigerator at home, and every single day I look to see revisit the things that I need to work on and the things that I need to see in others, or the things that I'm really proud of, the character strengths in myself. I love the story of how we worked with San Francisco Unified for the last 2 years, and the associate superintendent made tons and tons of photocopies of this poster and put them all up in every single classroom across the district. So it's really a great way to, as a daily reminder for students, administrators, people in HR, and basically humans across the world, to be coming to this and asking themselves these important questions. So these are our discussion kits that are available. As I mentioned, the periodic table of character strengths is part of those. Included too are 45 cards that include quotes and questions around the different films. And these questions are also based upon age appropriateness. So everyone from 4 years old to 100 years old can participate in these conversations. These discussion kits are free for the first 13,000 groups that order the kits online at characterday.org. The only thing that you need to pay for is just the shipping and handling. And we will say that the cost does go down the more that you bundle these kits together. All right, so here are the 3 films that we're going to be offering this year. As I mentioned, The Science of Character is really the first that kicked this off in 2014. The Adaptable Mind is an 11-minute film, one of my personal favorites, that goes over what makes us human in this ever-changing 21st century that we live in. And then the other film that we'll be offering is The Making of a Mensch, which is a 10-minute film similar to The Science of Character, but through a Jewish lens and the Jewish teachings of Musar. On top of this, we're also working with some of our partners. So Class Dojo is going to be offering their Growth Mindset series, which is really, really great for the young kiddos. So for elementary schools, that's wonderful to show. And then we're also working with Louis Schwartzberg and his terrific series called Gratitude Revealed. So please do stay focused and stay tuned to watch these wonderful films. If you would like to check these out ahead of time before Character Day, again, go to characterday.org and you can view these films, and I promise you won't be disappointed. They're wonderful. To tie all of these things together, we've created a global Google Hangout that's going to be happening on September 22nd for a whole 24-hour period. And what we do is we accumulate all of these wonderful social and emotional learning experts to be talking about different character strengths. So grit, resilience, kindness, empathy, love of learning, just to name a few. So some of our speakers that we're bringing on board that we're really, really excited about include Angela Duckworth, Martin Seligman, Zal Khan from Khan Academy, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, just to name a few. We will be updating our website as more speakers get confirmed, so please, again, do go to characterday.org to see these wonderful speakers, and make sure to incorporate this global Google Hangout into your Character Day. We're also building a large, robust educational resource hub, which is absolutely terrific. And the reason that we did this is that we work with so many amazing partners to really make Character Day come true. And so some of these partners are Meyerson Academy and VIA Institute, and we're, again, so proud to have them on board with Jillian Darwish speaking with us today. Other ones include Common Sense Media, Born This Way Foundation, Intel, many, many others. But as we're working with all of these wonderful partners, we realize that there's so many terrific books, movies, apps, what have you, but in different silos, so science, art, religion. And so we really found the opportunity to be able to bring all of these partners and all of these aggregators together into an educational resource hub to not only give you Character Day, which is one day in the beginning of the school year to really kick your social and emotional learning programs off, but to also then give you these resources to be using 365. So we're building this hub, and then we're also building an app. And so you can go in and pick what character strength you want to work on. So we'll have all of the character strengths from our periodic table of character strengths available to you. You can choose if you are a teacher, if you're part of a corporation, if you're an individual, if you're an educator, and then what modality. We'll have tons of lesson plans in there for you, podcasts, films, videos, what have you. So it's really, really a great way to use this personally and use this to help educate your students further on character education. So what does your character day look like? I get this question a ton of times. It's really a foreign concept when you're talking about a global initiative around character education. So first of all, I'll tell you, and I know that I keep bringing you back to the website, but there really are so many amazing resources for you on there. So characterday.org, we've created 4 different pages. So you can go and click on the link that says educators, and it's going to give you a sample of what an character day event can look like if you have 30 minutes. It can give you a sample of what a character day activities could look like if you have 60 minutes, or different add-on activities, and also different ways to market this to your district or individual schools or corporations and different departments. But just to give you an overall idea, first of all, your character day can look and feel any which way you want it to. So it can be any size. It can be in a humongous auditorium with, thousands of people, to a family of 4 just sitting at home on that Thursday evening watching 1 to all 3 of the films. It's really up to you. It can be anywhere, as I just said, and it can be any place. So some of the suggested activities that I said, you can do the film screenings. You can have breakout discussions. So this is really great, especially if you're going to be using the discussion kits that you've been ordering. Something else to keep in mind too is that, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but if you aren't able to receive the discussion kits, you can also always go onto our Education Hub, and all of those resources and questions will be online for you to access as well. A lot of schools and organizations will bring on special speakers to, again, talk about various character strengths. They'll do assemblies. You can have this during an after-school program. Again, San Francisco Unified had all of their schools doing, different activities within the classroom, and then also got their after-school programs involved too, which is really fantastic. A couple of schools have put on their own plays with their students, or they've even hired an outside play actors to come in and do a play for them. There's various art projects. Again, you'll also be able to find a lot of these resources on art projects and lesson plans within our Educational Resource Hub to give you more ideas. Community outreach is always great if you want to do a community service project to give back. And then, again, participating in our global Google Hangouts. So that basically, is wrapping up what Character Day is, but I'm also turning this on back to you, where we really, really need help passing this on. This isn't just our event, this is everyone's event throughout the entire world, and everyone needs to be focusing on this. So please do write down our Twitter hashtags if you have them. Like Character Day on Facebook and LinkedIn for by-the-minute updates, and then also make sure to share characterday.org with your community. There's a wonderful 1-minute trailer that basically goes over everything that I just said in 1 minute, and it's a great resource to share within your community. And then here's my contact information. I am here to answer any which questions that you have. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter and email me, and call me at any time. We definitely want to make sure that this event is the most fulfilling for you and your students and your organizations. So before I pass this over to Jillian, I do want to mention really quickly that we would love for you to submit some questions around Character Day, and also Jillian's presentation as we go through. So to submit questions, there's a little blue box on the bottom left-hand corner. You can also go on Twitter, #CD16, and please do submit these questions as they come through, and we'll answer this at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Jillian.
Great. Thank you. Am I coming through okay?
Yep, you are good to go.
Wonderful. Explanation of Character Day. Mackenzie, of course, I've known about it for the last few years, but it's fun to hear someone else talking about it and being so excited about it, as we certainly are here at Mayerson Academy. And really delighted to be able to join you and talk a little bit about our perspective on character strengths and why they're so important at this time. So I thought just ever so quickly, and I'll try to watch, let's see, I know a slide just popped up, but I won't be ready for it for a little while. If you want to, you can certainly leave it there or take it down, either way. Mm-hmm. But for us, at least, I'd like to talk a little bit about why we think character strengths are so important. And I know Mackenzie's already gone down that path a little bit, but of course, there are many things that are important. So what makes this the time in our context, our culture, our development, for this to be the important time to be talking about character strengths? And again, I think Mackenzie shared with us a very practical idea, and we certainly have others here that I just would like to build on that with. And then if, in fact, those things hold true, then how do you go about it? And when you do begin to think about character strengths, what happens? So that station in the next few minutes. So for us, we are a professional learning services firm. We're based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we take as our core purpose the idea of improving performance through extraordinary learning experiences. And so with that in mind, our organization offers, as many as 600 courses to educators in a year. We do that online, we do that in person, and we do that in mixed methods and mixed ways. What we find, no matter what we're doing, though, no matter how intensive, how brilliant the experience is, unless the individuals go back to a culture that's ready to receive those changes, that's ready to build on what they've learned, a lot of that can fall flat. So we are deep believers in culture as lever for change. So in a very practical way, we think this notion of thinking about character strengths and thinking about positive environments is essential for the acceleration of performance in any organization. From a research perspective, we are very fortunate to be located, as I mentioned, in Cincinnati with the VIA Institute. And we ground our work in their research, which has been transformative, really, in the field of psychology. Share that, up until the late 90s, we had a very deficit-based approach when it comes to psychology. What's wrong in individuals, what's wrong in organizations, not what's strong. And the beginning of the pursuit of a different way of thinking happened when Neil Marison met Marty Seligman and funded basically 55 global scientists to uncover what's best in all of us and to create a classification and ultimately create an instrument that could help us understand, again, the best of what is possible for all of us, and came up with 24 character strengths. They're classified in 6 virtue categories, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But to this point, 3.5 million people have taken the VIA. It is in 24 languages, and 25 languages, and there have been more than 200 research studies about the impact of understanding and applying character strengths in your life. So this is the foundation from which we draw our work. And very importantly, for us, we use that lens as an appreciative lens, really, to develop social and emotional learning competencies in learners of all ages. And we think that this is essential as well because it is, again, a very robust research base that we're informed by when we develop our programs through this vein. A lot of times you'll hear SEL spoken of as the soft skills and a lot of other really terrible naming conventions. But there certainly is nothing soft about the outcomes that really robust SEL programs produce. Of course, the meta-analysis by Weisberg and his colleagues stands out in the sense that, looking at 300 schools with more than 300,000 students, that when effective SEL programs are implemented, we can see academic gains as high as 12% increases. Or when we look at the cost-benefit analysis that was created by Columbia University Teachers College, we see that for every dollar spent, we'll get a $12 in return. And that could be from anything from absentee rates to dropouts to truancies, etc. So this is why we choose to do this work. And what keeps it truly from being a fad of the moment is that it's grounded in research that that is deep and robust. And the second point that I wanted to just talk about a little bit is why now? Because a lot of times, I think McKinsey's points are so well taken about what's going on in the world and the fact that so much has gotten squeezed out of education and it's become so linear and so narrow for many of our students. And so a lot of what happens in the classroom can become actually very transactional in the sense that why people get into education is because many times they deeply care about the development, the growth of others, and that's the part that can get squeezed out. And it's really at a time when we need it more than ever. And I think one of the reasons, of course, are the things that McKinsey's already alluded to, but also just the very dynamic and demanding nature of our world is really driving, I guess, even rather than a lesser than, a greater than sense of a care for the whole for our learners. And, we could go on and on about this, but I'll just mention one of the things we refer to frequently is the work of a group called Future Agenda and the way they see the drivers of change kind of reshaping our world. And as a crowdsourced effort, they've identified 8 different drivers of change. And things that are really disrupting our society, everything from the data revolution to changing interconnection of systems to unequal access to resources to the way our beliefs and our belonging are changing, and it just goes on and on. We know that that's the context that all of our learners are sitting in, both the adults and the students. And that context obviously is stressful. It could be for us even on a call, as I mentioned some of those things, our blood pressure rose just a few points. But we know that when we're experiencing that kind of dynamism and that kind of demand and that kind of change, stressful environments, that there's a real impact on us. And that impacts our attention, it impacts our perception, our short-term memory, our vocabularies, and in fact, our capacity to learn. And so we really need to be thinking about proactive measures that can ameliorate the stress that we're experiencing in our daily lives. And so there's a number of ways we can go about that. We have chosen to go about it through the lens of character strengths and social emotional learning. And one of the things that I will do frequently when I get to be in person with folks and have a bit more time is I'll divide the room into 2 different sections. And one section will have an envelope that they open up and they read a passage, and it's asking them to reflect on an experience that they've had that in their lives, and I really want them to fully relive it. What did it look like? What did it smell like? Who was there? What were they hearing? What were they saying? Etc. And then I'll ask them to flip over the paper, take the paper clip off that's attached to the piece of paper, and brainstorm as many things as they can about what they could do with that paper clip. And inevitably, one side of the room will have very different results than the other side of the room. One side of the room will have about 2 or 3 times as many ideas as the other side of the room. And there's a very small but very significant difference that's happened. I've told the people on one side of the room, typically the left side of the room, to imagine a really dreadful experience, something what didn't go well, where they had a really bad day, or where things went all incredibly wrong. And I'll ask the other side of the room, in fact, to recall something that was really quite fabulous, where they hit it out of the park, they were at their best, they were living in every way the way they wanted to. And I was necessarily and artificially putting them in a very positive frame of mind, a place where they were probably experiencing contentment, happiness, interest, joy, love, what Barbara Fredrickson calls the emotions of positivity. And we know from her theory, her broaden and build theory, that this is in fact the kind of environment that allows, again, learners of all ages to connect ideas, to expand their thinking, to create new ideas. So when we think about those 21st century skills, this is the kind of thing that we're looking for from our learners. And if we want that in the midst of the world we're living in, we have to be very intentional about the kind of environments we're creating. The challenge is we're hardwired actually to think about the negative in the world and what's not working, and we certainly know that from researchers at University of South Florida and others. So we have to be intentional, proactive, and relentless in our focus if we're going to create a different environment for our students. And we do that in our work through the lens of character strengths, where we really transform the culture of the classroom by giving the whole community a new language which looks at the very best in every individual, looks at the very best in the group, and looks at what's possible, what's the potential, what's our highest use here. So for us, that is based on, as you've already seen very quickly, and now we will take a look at the slide. It's based on the VIA character strengths, and they are categorized via virtues. The first of which is transcendence. And when we think of transcendence, we think of the virtue of the spirit. When we think of courage, we think of the virtue of the heart. When we think of justice, we think of the virtue of community. When we think of humanity, we think of the virtue of the other. When we think of temperance, we think of the virtue of self. And when we think of wisdom, we think of the virtue of the head. So the wonderful thing about looking at character strengths, as you can see here, is that what has been uncovered are 24 universally valued character strengths that are present to all of us in varying degrees. And this is critical to us in terms of the difference of the way we look at things, in the sense of through a positive lens. It's not a deficit lens. So it's not that you are weak in an area, it's that you may have a lesser strength in that area. And if we can go ahead and look at the next slide, the way we bring SEL and strengths together is shown very quickly here. That SEL, social emotional learning competencies, are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationships, and then we look at decision-making through all of those. So the difference for us is when we think, for instance, of developing a learner's sense of self-awareness, how can we do that through the lens of kindness to self? When we look at self-management, how can we look at that through the sense of gratitude? I'm grateful for the ways that I'm able to manage myself, and so on and so on. We have operationalized that, if you will, in the sense of a curriculum for the classroom, a series of learning tools, and an online digital platform. So what you're looking at here is a page from the curriculum, one of the activities that we've created, and the digital platform that we've partnered with is Happify. So just very, very briefly, that's what it looks like in terms of some of the tools that we make available. There's a video on our website, if you go to meyersonacademy.org and go to Develop and Deliver, where you'll see a video of the work in action, if that is of interest to you. So that is, in lightning speed, the kind of how of what we do. And then, what are the impacts? Well, we know from the research on character strengths that they do significantly impact things that we care about for learners. So when it comes to engagement and motivation, for instance, we know that when individuals are able to identify, talk about, and utilize their character strengths, they're more likely to be engaged and motivated in the things that they take on. We also know that satisfaction and meaning increase. So for instance, for adults, if they use 4 or more character strengths on a regular basis, they're significantly more likely to call or have their work feel as though to be a sense of calling. We also know that they dramatically affect well-being, both in the physical sense and in terms of mental health. And not surprisingly, we know that when utilization of strengths is addressed, goes up, increases, that achievement does with it. So in our work to this point, we are undertaking quantitative research right now that we expect to be ready by the end of summer in a subset of the more than 50 schools we're working in. And we have also created case studies based on qualitative data, which we'll be making available on our website. And our first one is actually up today. So would love to have you take a look at that. If, again, you go to themeyersonacademy.org and go to our impact. And certainly more qualitative stories of success appear on our blog. So those are just some quick resources that might be useful if this work would be of interest to you. I feel like that was a lightning fast overview of those 4 questions I said I'd try to address. Happy to stop there, answer questions, whatever's most useful at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jillian. That was really, really interesting to, learn more about your work. Even though we've been partners for a while now, I just always seem to be learning more and more every time that we connect with each other. So I'm sure our audience also found that very, very helpful. Elena, do we have any questions at all? Guys, everyone, if you could, remember to write any questions in that blue box if you're interested. And also use Twitter, #CD16. We'll wait just a minute or so if any questions want to roll in. In the meantime, I wanted to ask Jillian just a couple of questions. Should we really only rely on our top signature strengths? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So our signature strengths are those where we feel most comfortable. When people know us, they'll instantly recognize those things in us. And so, they do define us a bit. But this is, in my personal experience, I will say, it's essential that we cultivate different character strengths for different situations. So, for instance, it's not every time that we need to use creativity. When I'm sitting down to do budgets, that's probably not the strength I'm going to try to pull out. I'm going to try to pull out something more like prudence, maybe. The other thing I would say about that is that this is more personal experience, but when we are under duress, under really significant times of challenge, especially if those are prolonged, we need to really be able to tap into our full set of 24. And that's essential. That's part of what learning becomes for us in the midst of great challenge.
One question, where is the work highlighted in the study?
So Jillian, the question is, where is the work highlighted in your case study that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so our work is primarily in our region. The case studies that we've undertaken for this year are in Cincinnati, but we are currently working in all regions of the country, I'm happy to say. But yes, those are Cincinnati-based case studies.
Terrific. All right, well, I think that we're going to wrap up. We're a little bit over the half an hour, but again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Please do feel free to reach out to us for any additional questions. And thanks again, Jillian, for joining us. And we hope that, again, everyone will sign up for Character Day at characterday.org.